Should you really bring your lunchbox to office? Today we are going to take a look at whether or not this makes a significant impact financially. Hello and welcome. My name is Peter B. and I welcome you here at My First Million, where we are achieving our financial goals together. I think you have heard it already in many other platforms where people talk about finances, that you should bring your own lunchbox to office. Not the last, that also the food cost is one of the big three expenses. So if you can optimize that, it will help you financially. So today we are really going to take a look at, does it really has a significant impact of whether or not you're preparing your own lunch and bring it to office or to work. So for this, let me quickly change to my slides. So of course the first question is, when working, where do you eat lunch, or what options do you even have if you go to work? You could eat lunch in a restaurant. You can take it out in a takeaway or get it delivered. You can, maybe your company is providing a cafeteria or canteen where you can buy a meal where the company already gives some financial support to it. Maybe another option is, as mentioned, as the topic of this video, is you can bring your own lunch, or maybe if you live relatively close to home, maybe you even can consider to go home to eat your lunch at home. So what's the potential cost here? Let me quickly go to the next slide. Okay, what does one meal cost? So of course this very much depends where are you living, and depending on where you're living, the cost might differ a lot. So for me, I'm currently living in Taiwan, where eating out is relatively cheap. So restaurant costs, takeaway and delivery, and company canteen potentially should be much cheaper than this. However, in Switzerland, where I grew up, it's potentially even more expensive than what's listed here. So it really depends on your area of living. But for this example, for these calculations, I took an average cost per meal for a restaurant for $20. Takeaway or delivery, maybe $15, should be a little bit cheaper than eating in the restaurant. Company's canteen, as mentioned before, often the company is providing subsidies for healthy and nutritious meal in the company. So maybe it's only $9. Bringing your lunch home, so you still need to buy the food and prepare it at home. So this of course also has some cost attached to it. So I'm estimating $3, and if you eat at home, maybe it's potentially the same like when you are eating outside. Of course, considering only if you also would cook by yourself or for yourself at home. So if the costs in your area where you're living are different, just take this into consideration. So if a restaurant costs maybe $30 per meal, then maybe you need to add like a 50% on all the amounts that will follow up. If maybe cooking at home maybe only costs you $2, then of course you can like deduct like one third of the cost there. So, but I take these prices as a basis for the following calculations. So what would be then the annual cost? I just, for this example again, I assume like a 5 working days per year. Oh, not per year, sorry. 5 working days per week. So this is a typo here. And then 50 weeks per year. So this would end up at around 250 working days. So of course, depending on how many working days you are having per year, you can calculate a little bit less than what's shown in this example. But the restaurant, so basically 5 times 50 times $20, the restaurant would add up to annual cost of $5,000 per year. Takeaway or delivery would be $3,750. A company's canteen, $2,250, and bringing your own lunch as well as eating at home would be $750. So is this a significant amount? maybe eating outside is sometimes easier than preparing your meal. Of course, the cost of opportunity is there. So if you see this, you can think first, is it really worth your money? But then maybe also you should go one step ahead, because what you do now is potentially a habit that you will be having for your lifetime. So it's not just 1 year annual cost that you might need to take into consideration, but your whole working career. So how would the cost look like throughout the working career? So I put lifetime cost here. So for assuming someone is start working at 20 years old and he's retiring at 65, this would be 45 work years. So how much would it be? So the restaurant, if you take the amount before, the $5,000 per year, and multiply it times 45 years, so the restaurant cost will be $225,000. And then of course the cheaper options get cheaper and cheaper, and eating at home or cooking by yourself would be $33,000 to $34,000. So quite a bit cheaper here, and the amounts are adding up quite a bit, isn't it? Especially maybe if you're considering, okay, I have maybe an annual salary of $50,000 per year. So if you would always eat in a restaurant, then basically 4.5 years worth of your work just are going towards your lunch. So this wouldn't be a financial channel if we would not only take the money outflow into consideration, but actually also the cost of opportunity. So of course, when it comes to cost, the easiest thing is what you can consider is whatever you are paying outside. But if you remember in our previous video, we took a look at the wealth cycle. So the goal of spending less is not just boosting your savings, having more savings, but use then those savings and invest them. And if you are able to generate a rate of return from your investments, this will help you to boost your income additionally. So for me, usually when it comes to investment, I usually will use a rate of return, expected return of 7.2%. Why 7.2%? Because first of all, it's a very easy rate for calculations. So with considering the rule of 72, with a compounded interest of 7.2%, your investments will be doubling every 10 years. So every 10 years there's an easy double. So this is why I usually use 7.2% as an expected return. Also, expected return, I think this is quite realistic if you consider the average return that the stock market has provided over a long period of time, which is a little bit higher than this. So I'm, for myself, calculating a little bit more conservative here. So in this example, what's the difference between not compounded and compounded then? So it's, you take this $5,000 of annual cost every year, and the difference would be, what would you get out of it if instead of spending it in the restaurant, you just invest everything? So this will give us then the opportunity cost. So if you take the 5,000, invest it with a 7.2% annual compounding return, after 45 years, at the point when you're retiring, you would end up with 1.5 million. So this is a huge amount. So who doesn't want to have 1.5 million in his retirement account, in addition to what he's already having? Then, of course, the cheaper it gets, the less effect, or the lower the amount will be. And of course, you cannot cut to zero, because potentially you still need to eat lunch and still need to survive. So maybe your base cost, or opportunity cost, is the 227,000 here, maybe are unavoidable. So the difference then is between cooking by yourself and eating in a restaurant is the 1.5 million minus the 200,000 that you need to spend anyways. So it would be potentially cost of opportunity saving that you could add up to $1.3 million. So, of course, never trust any statistics or calculations that you didn't manipulate it by yourself. For me personally, I usually just use a savings calculator, where just like this one from investor.gov, where I just key in, okay, 5,000 annual expense. This will be the total contribution here, so the light blue line, and then the future value, the red line, is showing the amount that you will be having over time. And you see that the compounding effect here very nicely, that for a smaller period of time it's not very significant, but the longer this runs, the higher the compounding effect is going to be. So this is how I'm getting these results. So to sum this up, should you really bring your own lunch? Of course, it's your own decision. Everyone knows it's a trade-off between, you want to make the trade-off between ease of life, not the need to prepare your lunch, and also ease of life just to go outside and grab something for lunch without needing to think about it in advance. Of course, then there is also other opportunity cost. Maybe going to eat in the canteen or in a restaurant, sometimes with your co-workers, is also like a social experience, and therefore also maybe helpful networking. So it's of course always a trade-off. So I'm not saying that maybe you should bring your lunch all the time, but maybe you can considering it from time to time, or do it more and more often, and reduce your expense accordingly. Whatever works best for you in your situation. For me personally, I like to most of the time to bring my lunch or eat at home. So if I work from home, like recently, most of the time I will cook for myself at home. If I go to office, usually, if I go more regularly, I will usually also consider bringing my own lunch, and only sometimes go to eat with my colleagues. So, do you have any additional ideas or tips on what you can be doing for saving for your lunch expenses? Or also, maybe share with us your experience in the comments below, what makes sense for you. And of course, I know every person's situation can be slightly different. Thanks a lot for joining me today. I look forward to see you in the next video, and especially I look forward to see you winning financially.